The Seven Samurai is considered by many to be the crowning jewel of Akira Kurosawa's career. This movie has been praised to death, but is it worth all the hype? In my opinion, yes. This is one of the greatest movies ever made, and the inspiration that it's had on the entire industry is endless. Even to this day, filmmakers and film enthusiasts have been analyzing Kurosawa's work, and this movie especially. From the story, the acting, the stunt work, and of course, how Kurosawa choreographs the cinematography. I feel like I could take any still image from this movie and frame it on my wall. Seven Samurai is one of the most studied films in history, and with all the analyzing and essays that have been written about it, there is very little I can bring to the table to offer a fresh opinion. That being said, however, there is one thing about this movie that I don't hear many people talk about often. George Lucas once said that Kurosawa was once asked if his movies have a common theme. Kurosawa's answer was that they ask a common question. Why can't people be happier together? So for this video, I would like to focus on the subtle message that I believe Kurosawa was trying to say with this film. Unification. Stories of characters putting aside their differences to fight a common enemy are not scarce. But Seven Samurai is a great example of the subject because it's set in a time where division was a common problem. The film takes place in approximately 1587 during the Sengoku dynasty, based on analyzing the math of Kikuchiyo's so-called birthday. During this historical time, the entire country of Japan was divided into different castes: peasants, artisans, merchants, etc. These divisions eventually caused fear and distrust between the different groups. So in this movie, we have three different castes colliding with each other: the farmers, the bandits, and the samurai. The farmers realize that they cannot face the bandits on their own, and therefore hire the samurai to protect them. But even then, some farmers believe that the samurai are just as bad as the bandits. So to them, being forced to hire the samurai is like choosing the lesser of two evils. One farmer, Manzo, even goes to great lengths to cut his own daughter's hair and force her to dress like a man to avoid the possibility of one of the samurai raping her. This doesn't stop young love from taking effect, of course. But another problem during this time period is that it was forbidden for different castes to mix with one another. If you were born into a farmer's family, you were considered a farmer and had to marry into another farmer's family. If you were born into a bandit's family, you were considered a bandit and had to marry into another bandit's family, etc. Which is why, when the rest of the characters find out about Katsushiro and Shino's romance, it's not met with a warm welcome. Even though it's most unlikely that these discussions were actual concerns back then, Kurosawa uses this time period to relay modern messages to his audience. The message that we are not as different from each other as we believe. There is a rift between the farmers and the samurai at first, but over time they begin to rely on one another and realize that in order to face their common enemy, they need to put aside their differences and work together. This is why I believe the character of Kikuchiyo is the most important character in the story. Not because he's played by Toshiro Mifune, one of Kurosawa's trademark actors, but because of his backstory. Kikuchiyo was born a farmer who wants to become a samurai. Having experienced both sides firsthand, he essentially becomes the bridge between the two castes and tries to help each side understand the other. There is one moment where he is criticizing the way the farmers avoid them unless their own lives are in danger. And in another moment, he lectures the samurai, explaining to them what their kind has done in the past to make the farmers so distant. The first 2/3 of this movie can seem a bit slow to some, especially with a 3.5-hour running time, but I feel that it is important to the story. The film takes its time setting up the relationships with the characters, so that by the time the battle does commence, we as the audience feel each crushing loss. This is also a reason why Kurosawa never focuses on the bandits. Sure, we see them briefly at the beginning to help establish the dilemma that the farmers are faced with, but aside from that, the bandits don't really contribute a major part to the story until the battle begins at the beginning of the third act. The two Magnificent Seven movies established antagonists for the Seven to go up against, but in Samurai, the bandits are shadow characters. We don't really know anything about any of them personally. They're basically the MacGuffin of the film. To Kurosawa, it's more important to focus on the uniting of people from different walks of life, rather than tell a typical good versus evil tale. He uses this bit of Japanese history to send a common message to the world. It should not matter where you come from or who you are. If we look past our differences, we realize that we have a lot more in common with each other than we think. Of course, at the end of the movie, after the bandits are defeated, the farmers no longer need the samurai and go right back to ignoring them as they begin to rebuild what was lost, leaving the samurai standing there with no reward or gratitude for their bravery to be found. Division is just what these people are more familiar with, but the important thing is that for the little time that they were united, it worked. Put this message together with masterful filmmaking and you have an iconic classic. I don't think there is any way I can sum this movie up more than it already has been. Kurosawa was a directing genius. Many say that Alfred Hitchcock was in a league of his own, but I believe that Kurosawa shares that league with him. I'm going to give The Seven Samurai 5 stars. Guys, I'm sorry I haven't posted in a while. Things have been very busy in my life, but I appreciate you watching my videos all the same. And if you like this, you can click here and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.